Ethan's childhood dream was to be a hero. When I was younger, I was a victim of severe domestic abuse by my father, Frank. I was molested by a relative, fell into a deep depression, and tried to end my life multiple times. Ethan was the one who saved me. He found me a place to live. He confiscated my box cutters, threw away my bottles of sleeping pills, and never left me alone for too long. "I will always be with you, Iris," he had whispered. "From now on, your tears go down, but you only go up." When we grew up, we got together. But his savior complex never went away. When his new secretary, Vivian, faced office bullying, he was the first to stand up for her. When Vivian was harassed and became too terrified to walk home in the dark, he personally drove her to and from work every single day. When Vivian's apartment was broken into and she was too traumatized to sleep alone, he stayed at her place all night, sleeping on her couch to keep her company. Gradually, he stopped caring if there were sharp objects around me. He stopped caring if I cried myself to sleep. He didn't even care anymore when my abusive father, Frank, showed up at my door with a knife, demanding money. He only left me with one cold sentence. "Can't you just be grateful? Vivian has it way worse than you. I need to look after her first." But pain is not a competition. It shouldn't be measured or compared. I wasn't ungrateful. I just wanted a heart that chose me over everyone else. That was all. Since he couldn't give me that, it was time for me to pack up and find my own way. The night Ethan decided to sleep over at Vivian's place yet again, I broke. I rushed forward and blocked the doorway with my arms spread wide. "Ethan." I looked up at him, my voice trembling. "Are you her boyfriend or mine?" The eyes that used to look at me with nothing but warmth were now filled with nothing but cold detachment. "Iris, I'm just trying to be an umbrella for everyone caught in the rain. Can't you be a little more generous?" I froze. He continued without a hint of guilt. "A man is always a boy at heart. I'm just living out my childhood dream of saving people. You should be supporting me." "Iris, don't be so selfish. I can't be your exclusive savior." Of course. His heroism had to be distributed equally to every needy soul in the world. Back in high school, if anyone was bullied, he was the first to fight back. If anyone couldn't afford lunch, he would share his allowance. And when I was beaten by my father, hiding in a dark alley covered in bruises, he was the one who found me and gently wiped away my blood. I didn't want to go back to that house of horrors. So he took me in. We relied on each other. We loved each other. When the rumors of my molestation spread, and everyone labeled me as damaged goods, he was the one who held me and said, "Iris, they are the ones in the wrong, not you. To me, you are an angel." But love and hate often stem from the exact same source. I fell in love with him because he was a hero. And now, I was losing my mind because he wanted to be everyone else's hero too. Pulling myself back to reality, I grabbed his sleeve tightly, begging, "Ethan, please don't go tonight. Please." I stared into his eyes, desperately searching for a single trace of pity or love. There was nothing. He gently but firmly pried my hand away from his sleeve. His tone was brutally calm. "I have to. Vivian is sick. If I don't go take care of her, something terrible might happen." Tears blurred my vision. I choked out, "But I'm sick too." "Ethan, Frank said he's coming to find me soon. I'm terrified." Ethan clicked his tongue impatiently. "I've told you 100 times, the security in this apartment complex is top tier. He can't get in." Realizing his tone was too harsh, he softened his voice, patted my shoulder, and said seriously, "Iris, stop identifying so hard as a victim. Vivian studied psychology. She told me that the more I coddle you, the more you'll think you're broken. It's time for you to learn to process your own emotions." A cold shiver ran down my spine. I didn't have the strength to block him anymore. Slowly, my arms dropped to my sides. Ethan finally smiled. He nodded in approval. "That's my girl. That's the supportive girlfriend I love. I'll bring you some cake when I get back tomorrow morning." With that, he turned and left without a second look. The door clicked shut. Only a suffocating, pitch-black silence remained in the apartment. It felt like I was back in that dark alley years ago. The horrifying memories rushed back. Anxiety clawed its way through my chest. Right then, a loud, violent knocking banged on the door. Asterisk thud. Thud. Thud asterisk. I crept up and looked through the peephole. I met the bloodshot, drunken eyes of a man grinning wickedly. "Open the door, bitch. Your dad sold you to me to pay off his debt. You're mine sooner or later. Just you wait." The childhood terror of being violated paralyzed me. I shook violently. My instinct was to dial Ethan's number, but his cold words echoed in my head. Asterisk. You need to learn to process your own emotions. Stop relying on me for everything. Asterisk. Slowly, I lowered my phone. I bit my lip so hard it bled, refusing to make a single sound. I didn't sleep a wink that night. When the morning light filtered through the curtains, I dragged my exhausted body with heavy dark circles under my eyes into the living room, wanting to pour a glass of warm water to calm my racing heart. But the moment I looked up, I froze. A strange woman was sitting on my couch. She wore a short white skirt and had a bright, radiant smile. She stood up and greeted me warmly. "Hi, you must be Iris. I'm Vivian, Ethan's secretary." So this was the woman Ethan always talked about. The one who needed his constant protection. Before I could even process this, Ethan walked out of my master bedroom and announced casually, "Vivian is going to live with us from now on. The office is close to this place, so it's much easier for her commute." Years ago, he had felt sorry for me because I had nowhere to go, and he brought my bruised body to this very apartment. Back then, this place was my only safe haven. We lived together, fell in love, and built a life. But now he used the exact same excuse to bring another woman into our home. How was I supposed to react to that? Seeing my eyes well up with tears, Ethan quickly opened a box of cake and held a forkful to my mouth. "Silky girl, are you seriously jealous of my secretary? Don't worry, you're the only one I love." He raised 3 fingers to make an oath. But the promise felt so cheap, so utterly meaningless. "Iris, sweetie, I heard you suffer from depression," Vivian said, putting on a show of deep concern, though her eyes flashed with pure provocation. "But don't worry, I studied psychology. Ethan and I will heal you together." Since she moved in, everything changed. My personal vanity cabinet, which used to belong only to me, was now overflowing with her dresses and skincare products. My antidepressants were pushed into a dusty corner, barely having any space. To heal me, they brought back all the knives they had previously locked away and placed them right in front of me. They even removed the safety locks on the balcony doors. "Vivian said that trapping you inside only makes you feel more like a patient," Ethan explained. "Iris, live like a normal person. You can do this." At night, the contrast was even more brutal. In the past, even if I just sighed in my sleep, he would immediately wake up to comfort me. Now, when I woke up screaming from nightmares, drenched in cold sweat, he remained completely unmoved. He didn't even bother to look at me. "Vivian said you have to face your fears. Running away won't solve anything." But after a month of this therapy, my condition got drastically worse. Vivian stood by my hospital bed, biting her lip as she apologized. "I'm so sorry, Iris. I didn't mean to make your depression worse. But don't worry, I will definitely find a way to cure you." I let out a cold, mocking laugh. "Cure me? Where is your medical license?" She stiffened. She clearly didn't expect me to be so direct. Instantly, her face crumpled into a perfect picture of innocence and hurt. "Iris, if you hate me that much, I'll just leave." Ethan instinctively stepped in front of Vivian, blocking my view. That protective gesture stabbed my eyes like a knife. "Iris, Vivian is only trying to help you. Why are you being so toxic and passive-aggressive? Why are you so ungrateful?" He got more and more worked up, finally spitting out the words that shattered my heart completely. "No wonder no one likes you. No wonder your mother chose to die just to get away from you." My mother's death was not a sudden rainstorm. It was a lifelong humidity. Years ago, when my father raised the knife to kill me, my mother blocked it. Before she passed away in the hospital, she told me, "Living is too painful, Iris. This time, I'd rather die to get away from him." I had shown my deepest, most painful scar to Ethan. And today, he weaponized it to humiliate me in front of another woman. I thought I would cry, but when I touched my chest, it felt empty. Only a freezing coldness remained. When your heart goes completely numb, it doesn't hurt anymore. "Ethan, you're right." I smiled weakly, a strange sense of calm washing over me. "So you should leave me too." I was done. I wanted out. A flash of panic crossed Ethan's face. "Iris, I didn't mean it like that." He wanted to explain, but Vivian held him back. "Ethan, Iris is emotionally unstable right now. She won't listen to anything you say. Let's just give her some space to calm down." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. He tucked my blanket in, and then walked out of the room with Vivian. He didn't come back that night. It wasn't until the next morning that they returned to sign my discharge papers. Looking at my pale face, Vivian smiled mysteriously. "Iris, guess what Ethan and I did for you yesterday?" I kept my face expressionless. "I don't care, and I don't want to know." Her smile faltered for a second, but she quickly pulled a giant teddy bear out of a shopping bag, her face glowing with triumph. "Look, isn't it cute? I know this is your favorite limited edition bear." Yesterday, the mall had a couples contest. Ethan and I had to kiss for a whole hour. Our lips were practically bleeding, just to win this for you. "See, Ethan and I care about you so much." I had been with Ethan for years. We had never had any passionate physical intimacy, because he always told me, "The highest form of love is cherish. I'm afraid to touch you too much because I don't want to lose control and hurt you." But now, he could kiss another woman for an hour in a public game. My stomach churned with intense disgust. I snatched the teddy bear and threw it straight into the trash can. Then I looked at Ethan coldly. "I have emotional hygiene. I don't want secondhand trash that other people have slobbered over." Ethan's face flushed red with anger. Iris, is your depression cured or what? How dare you speak to us like that? Vivian and I did that just to make you happy. Why do you have to be so petty about how we got the toy? I smiled bitterly. But I'm not happy at all. Ethan, let's break up. I'm going back to pack my things. Before Ethan could react, I turned, flagged down a taxi, and left. Back at the apartment, I felt a wave of emptiness. This place was once my safe haven. But now, the storm inside was too violent, and there was no room left for me. Just as I finished packing my suitcase, Ethan and Vivian burst through the door. Ethan pinned me against the wall, his eyes bloodshot as he begged me not to leave. Iris, we love each other so much. Why are you doing this over a silly fight? If you don't want me to protect other people, fine. I'll be your exclusive hero from now on. It's too late tonight. Tomorrow, I promise I'll make Vivian move out, okay? Yes. We used to love each other so much. We had literally saved each other's lives. The memories of his grand, romantic gestures flashed before my eyes. Once, when I said I wanted pastries from a bakery in Paris, he rented a private jet to fly them over overnight. On my birthday, he rented out an entire amusement park just to put on a private fireworks show for me. And when my father stabbed me, Ethan took 2 blows for me and bled out on the way to the hospital just to make sure I survived. But no matter how beautiful the past was, when it's time to let go, you have to let go. Looking back at the past is like trying to catch a ghost. You only torture yourself. Ethan was stubborn. I knew I had to play along to get away safely. Fine. I'll trust you one last time. Ethan gasped in relief and pulled me into a tight hug. Go to sleep. I promise when you wake up tomorrow, there won't be a third person in this house. That night, I couldn't sleep. At around 2 a.m., I felt a sudden draft of cold air. I opened my eyes and my heart stopped. Standing by my window was the man I feared most in this world, my father, Frank. He had somehow climbed up the pipes and slipped through the unlocked balcony door. He rubbed his filthy hands together, his eyes gleaming with greed. Found you, you little bitch. Give me the money, or I'm dragging you back to sell you to my bookie. The old terror paralyzed my lungs. But this time, I refused to let him destroy me. I clenched my fists, lunged forward, and bit down on his wrist with everything I had. My teeth sank deep into his flesh. The copper taste of blood filled my mouth. He screamed in agony and violently threw me off. I crashed onto the floor. My arm knocked over the burning aromatherapy candle on the nightstand. The flame immediately caught onto the sheer, flimsy curtains. In an instant, fire roared up the fabric. Within seconds, the room was swallowed by thick smoke and bright orange flames. Frank panicked. Forgetting about the money, he scrambled back out the window to save his own skin. It wasn't until smoke began seeping through the cracks of the bedroom door that Ethan and Vivian finally realized what was happening. Vivian, coughing from the smoke in the hallway, fainted right into Ethan's arms. Ethan looked at the raging fire blocking my bedroom door, then looked at me trapped inside. His face twisted with conflict. Iris, this is between you and your father. Vivian is innocent. She shouldn't be dragged into this. I have to get her to safety first. I'll come back for you. You know fire safety. Find a way to survive. I'll be right back. The scorching black smoke stung my eyes, making them water. I let out a soft laugh. Since no one was coming to save me, I would save myself. Maybe Ethan was right. I couldn't wait for someone else to hold the umbrella anymore. I had to walk through the rain myself. At that moment, I realized that the heart that chose me above all else had always been beating inside my own chest. I stopped looking at the locked door. I turned around and looked at the open balcony. Below the balcony was a rushing, deep river. It was my only way out. I wiped the tears from my face, took a deep breath, and jumped into the water. The plunge into the river was not a death. It was an awakening. The icy water slammed into my chest, knocking the breath from my lungs and extinguishing the phantom burn of smoke. The current was savage, roaring like an angry beast, dragging me beneath the frothing surface. For a second, my lungs screamed for air, and my limbs felt heavy, weighted down by 10 years of suffocating guilt, fear, and reliance. Let go, a whisper in the back of my mind urged. It's so easy to just sink. No. The thought erupted with violent clarity. I didn't jump off that balcony to die. Like a coward in the dark, I jumped to escape the prison they built for me. I kicked my legs with every shred of strength left in my battered body, fighting the undertow, pulling toward the pale moonlight shimmering on the surface. My head broke through the water. I gasped, coughing out river silt, my fingers clawing into the muddy embankment nearly half a mile downstream. I dragged myself onto the gravelly shore, shivering violently in the biting night air. My pajamas were torn, my knees scraped raw, and blood from the bite mark on my arm had washed clean in the river. I collapsed onto the damp grass, staring up at the vast, indifferent night sky. Behind me in the distance, the sirens of fire trucks were wailing their red and blue lights painting the low clouds over the city. Ethan would be down there on the street right now. He would be holding Vivian against his chest, wrapping her in his jacket, whispering soothing words while she coughed delicately into his collar. He would tell himself he did the right thing, that he was being the rational one, the protector, the savior of the helpless. And when he finally looked up at the blackened window of our third-floor bedroom, he would tell the firefighters that his girlfriend was inside. I pushed myself up onto my hands and knees. My teeth chattered so hard they ached, but beneath the freezing chill in my veins there was a steady, defiant fire. I reached into the hidden lining of my waterproof running pouch strapped around my waist, the one thing I had kept on me before going to sleep. Inside was my passport, a burner debit card linked to my private savings account, and the key to a small storage unit on the outskirts of the neighboring province. I stood up. I didn't look back at the burning skyline. I turned toward the dark highway, holding my own shoulders, and walked into the night. The fire was put out in 40 minutes. Ethan stood on the pavement across from the building, soot smearing his jaw, his eyes wide and vacant as he watched the firefighters haul heavy hoses through the charred doorway. Mr. Hayes. The fire captain walked over, taking off his heavy helmet. His expression was grim. We searched the entire master suite. The bed is completely incinerated, but we found no human remains in the debris. Ethan's breath hitched. A sudden, desperate spark of hope flared in his chest. She's alive? Iris got out. The balcony railing was bent outward. The captain continued, pointing up at the third floor. And we found bloody handprints on the edge of the stone. Below. That is the north branch of the river. The water was running at 8 knots. Tonight due to the storm upstream. The captain hesitated, placing a heavy, soot-stained glove on Ethan's shoulder. The drop is 40 feet into jagged rock beds. Our search and rescue team found a torn piece of silk nightwear snagged on a drainage pipe 300 yards downriver. If she went in, the chances of survival are practically zero. Ethan's knees buckled. He crashed onto the asphalt, his hands scraping against the rough pavement. No, he choked out, his voice cracking into a ragged whisper. No, Iris knows how to swim. She wouldn't. She was supposed to wait for me. I told her I was coming back for her. Beside him, Vivian, draped in Ethan's cashmere coat, sipping bottled water, provided by the paramedics, let out a soft sob and knelt beside him. Ethan, please don't punish yourself, Vivian wept, her voice trembling with theatrical grief. It's all my fault. If I hadn't panicked, you could have gone to her first. But Iris was always so fragile. Her depression was so severe. Maybe she didn't want to be saved this time. Ethan slowly turned his head to look at her. For the first time in 6 months, her tears didn't make him feel like a chivalrous knight standing between a delicate flower and a cruel world. They felt like nails scraping across chalkboard. Shut up, Ethan whispered. Vivian froze, blinking through her tears. What? I told her to wait, Ethan said, his voice rising in an unstable, hysterical pitch as he grabbed his hair with both hands. I took away her locks. I told her. She was playing the victim. I told her her mother died to get away from her. He looked up at the blackened, hollow window of his home, screaming until his vocal cords tore. Iris. 3 weeks passed. The police officially classified Iris Vance as missing, presumed deceased by drowning. The apartment was a gutted shell. Ethan refused to hire a restoration crew. Spent every night sitting on the scorched floorboards of the bedroom, surrounded by the smell of burnt wood and damp ash. His company was in shambles. He skipped client meetings, ignored board calls, and spent his days wandering the muddy banks of the river, searching through driftwood and garbage for any trace of me. Vivian tried everything to slip into the vacant space. She brought home-cooked meals to the office. She organized his schedule. She even moved the rest of her belongings into the guest room of his parents' house, claiming she was staying close to take care of Ethan during his time of grief. One rainy evening, someone pounded heavily on the front door of Ethan's parents' estate. Vivian opened the door, expecting a delivery driver. Instead, a disheveled, reeking man shoved his way into the foyer. It was Frank. His eyes were bloodshot, his clothes stained with grease and cheap liquor, and a dirty bandage was wrapped around his right wrist. Where is she? Frank snarled, spitting on the polished hardwood. Where's my daughter? That little bitch bit a chunk out of my arm and burned down an apartment. Her bookie owes me 30 grand, and I'm here to collect. Vivian gasped, stepping back with genuine terror. Get out. Iris is dead. Drowned in the river because of you. Dead? Frank barked out a harsh, mocking laugh. Don't play dumb with me, sweetheart. You're the one who texted me her new address. You're the one who gave me the gate code and told me the balcony door would be unlocked at 2 in the morning. Ethan, who had been sitting in the dark study down the hall, stepped into the foyer. His face was gaunt, with dark purple hollows beneath his bloodshot eyes and unkempt beard. He looked like a ghost that had crawled out of a crypt. What did you just say? Ethan asked. Frank grinned wickedly, pulling out a cracked smartphone. I said your little side piece here hired me to scare Iris out of the city. She gave me $5,000 cash and promised another 10 once Iris ran away and left you alone. He waved the screen in Ethan's face. There in black and white were the text messages from Vivian's private number. The balcony door is unlocked. Come through the back alley at 2 a.m. Scare her. Good. Make her realize she's not safe here. Ethan won't be in her room. Ethan stood frozen. The silence in the foyer was so heavy it felt as though the roof were caving in. Ethan, listen to me, Vivian stammered, her face turning the color of wet chalk as she reached for his arm. He's lying. He extorted me. I only wanted to help Iris face her trauma. I thought if she saw her father and overcame her fear. Slap. The sound echoed like a gunshot through the house. Ethan didn't just push her away. He struck her with such force that Vivian crashed onto the marble console table, sending an antique vase shattering to the floor. You weren't helping her, Ethan whispered, his hands trembling with lethal, psychotic rage. You were hunting her. He looked at his own hands, the hands that had unlocked the balcony door, the hands that had pried Iris's fingers from his sleeve, the hands that had carried Vivian out into the cool night air while Iris burned alive in the dark. And I, Ethan choked out, falling to his knees amidst the shards of porcelain, handed you the knife. Frank backed away slowly, sensing the madness in the room, and bolted out into the rain. Ethan didn't chase him. He just knelt in the dirt and the broken glass, sobbing, until he vomited blood onto the floor. 3 years later, the coastal city of St. Jude was famous for its mild climate, crystal clear blue waters, and thriving artistic district. At the corner of the historic harbor square stood a 2-story glass-fronted atelier named the Green Umbrella. The shop specialized in high-end botanical preservation and architectural landscape design. Inside, the air smelled of eucalyptus, damp moss, and freshly cut cedar. I stood behind the wide oak workbench, trimming the roots of a rare Japanese bonsai with steady, practiced hands. I wore a simple linen apron over a cream knit sweater, my long hair pinned up loosely with a silver hairpin. My skin had a healthy, sun-kissed glow from spending hours in the nursery greenhouses, and the heavy dark circles that had haunted my youth were entirely gone. Iris, the invoice for the Grand Bay Hotel exhibition just cleared. My business partner, Chloe, called from the front desk, holding up a tablet with a radiant grin. 200,000. We officially broke our annual sales record. I smiled, setting down the shears. That means dinner is on me tonight. Pick whatever restaurant you want. Sushi by the marina. Chloe cheered, stepping out to water the hanging ferns by the entrance. Life was good. It was simple, hard-earned, and wholly mine. After crawling out of the river that night, I had spent 6 months in a quiet seaside town recovering from pneumonia. I took odd jobs at a commercial greenhouse, discovered a natural talent for botanical design, and poured every cent of my savings into building this business from scratch. I had found an excellent trauma therapist who didn't give me homework about processing my victimhood, but taught me how to establish boundaries, build self-worth, and recognize emotional parasites. I was no longer a frightened girl hiding in a dark alley waiting for a boy with a band-aid. I was an independent, thriving woman who owned her own sky. Excuse me, miss? A soft chime of the shop door interrupted my thoughts. A young couple walked in, holding hands. The young man looked around in awe. We're looking for a centerpiece for our wedding anniversary. Something that symbolizes resilience. I walked over, smiling warmly. I have just the thing. A preserved mountain. Juniper. It grows on sheer cliffs, weathers the harshest storms, and stays green through the coldest winters. As I wrapped the planter in heavy craft paper, the bell above the door chimed. Again. A customer stepped into the threshold. The afternoon sun was behind him, casting a long, dark shadow across the polished wooden floorboards. I looked up, offering my standard professional smile. Welcome to the Green Umbrella, how can I? The words died in my throat. The man standing in the doorway looked like a ghost from a past life. Ethan. He had lost weight, a lot of it. His once athletic frame was gaunt and hollow, beneath a dark, rumpled trench coat. His handsome face was etched with deep lines of exhaustion, his temples dusted with premature silver hair. He stood frozen on the doormat, his hands shaking so violently that the car keys in his grip clattered against each other. His bloodshot eyes stared at me unblinking, as if he were looking at an apparition that might dissolve if he breathed too loud. Iris, he whispered. The sound of his voice was cracked, paper-thin, carrying 3 years of suffocating torment. Behind the counter, Chloe noticed the tension and subtly stepped closer to the landline phone. I didn't flinch. I didn't drop the planter. I took a slow, deep breath, finished tying the twine around the craft paper, and handed the bonsai to the young couple with a calm smile. Here you are. Have a wonderful anniversary. Thank you, miss. The couple paid and hurried out, casting a nervous, sideways glance at the strange man standing like a stone statue in the doorway. Once the door clicked shut, the silence in the shop became absolute. Ethan took a staggered step forward, his knees trembling. You're alive. You're really alive. A tear broke from his eye, cutting a clean track through the gray pallor of his cheek. I searched every morgue, every shelter in 3 states, he choked out, his chest heaving with dry, ragged sobs. They found your nightgown, they said you were gone. Iris. My God, Iris, you're alive. He lunged forward, his arms outstretched, desperately reaching to pull me into his chest. I took half a step backward, placing the wide oak workbench firmly between us. Sir, I said, my voice cool, level, and entirely devoid of emotion. Please, keep your hands to yourself. This is a private business. The word sir hit Ethan like a physical blow from a sledgehammer. His hands froze in midair. He looked down at the 4 feet of polished oak, separating us, his face twisting into an expression of unendurable agony. Iris, don't do this, he pleaded, his voice breaking into a ragged whine. It's me. It's Ethan. The boy who wiped your blood in the alley. The boy who promised to be your hero. The boy in the alley died a long time ago, Ethan. I replied calmly, picking up a damp towel to wipe the potting soil from my fingers. And so did the girl who waited for him. No, she didn't. Ethan cried, slamming his open palms onto the workbench, leaning toward me with desperate intensity. I know what Vivian did. I found out the truth. I threw her into prison, Iris. She was convicted of reckless endangerment and criminal conspiracy. She's serving 4 years in the state penitentiary. He frantically fumbled inside his coat pocket, pulling out a thick, legal document and spreading it across the counter. Look, I tracked down Frank too. I hired private investigators, gathered all his illegal gambling records, and had him sentenced to 7 years for extortion and aggravated assault. He can never touch you again. No one will ever hurt you. He looked up at me, his eyes wide and burning with a frantic, pathetic hunger for validation. I did it for you, Iris. I saved you, just like I always promised. I looked down at the court documents. Then, I looked up into his bloodshot, manic eyes. I felt no rage. I felt no surge of triumph. I felt only a profound, bottomless pity for a man who had completely destroyed his own life chasing an imaginary cape. Ethan, I said softly. A spark of hope flared in his eyes. Yes, Iris? Yes. Did it ever occur to you? I asked, my voice cutting through the quiet shop, like clear water, that I didn't need you to put Frank in prison? I had already filed a federal restraining order and submitted my testimony to the district attorney 2 years ago via certified mail. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. I didn't need a hero, Ethan, I continued, looking directly into his soul. I needed a partner who wouldn't abandon me in a burning room to stroke his own ego. I needed a man who understood that love isn't a performance you put on for an audience. I made a mistake, Ethan wailed, dropping straight onto his knees on the wooden floorboards, clutching the edge of the workbench as if it were the only thing tethering him to the earth. I was blind. I was sick in the head. I thought if I saved everyone I could make up for the things I couldn't fix when I was a kid. But I never loved Vivian. I swear on my mother's grave, I never loved anyone but you. He pressed his forehead against the hard wood, weeping with such violence that his entire frame convulsed. Come home with me, Iris, please. I bought a house by the sea, just like you wanted. I bought all your favorite books. I'll give you everything I have, the company, the deeds, my life. Just let me stay by your side. Even if you treat me like a dog, even if you never look at me with warmth again. Just let me be near you. I looked down at the man who had once been my entire universe. I remembered the nights I spent shivering in the dark while he comforted another woman. I remembered the suffocating terror of that fire, the smell of my own burning hair and his cold words echoing through the smoke. Vivian is innocent, you no fire safety. Ethan, I said, my voice as calm and tranquil as the morning tide. He slowly lifted his head, his face soaked in tears and snot, looking up at me, like a beggar waiting for a single scrap of bread. Stand up. He swallowed hard, using the table to pull himself to his feet, his hands trembling. Look out the window, I said. He turned his head toward the wide glass front of the store. Outside, the late afternoon sun was shining brightly over the harbor. Children were chasing seagulls across the stone plaza, couples were sharing ice cream on the benches, and the tide was rolling gently against the seawall. I have a business that I built with my own sweat, I told him, my voice steady and proud. I have friends who respect me. I have a home where every door is locked by my own hand, and where no one comes in unless I invite them. I stepped out from behind the counter, walking to the front door and pulling it wide open. A cool, clean breeze filled the shop, carrying the scent of salt and freedom. I walked through the storm by myself, Ethan, I said, looking him in the eye. For the last time. And I don't need your umbrella anymore. Ethan stood in the center of the shop, looking at the open door, then looking at me. He finally understood. There was no anger left in me to appease. There was no hatred left for him to conquer. There was only a vast, impenetrable wall of total indifference. The girl who used to cry in his arms, the girl who begged him not to leave, the girl who depended on his mercy for her sanity. He had murdered her himself in that burning room 3 years ago. And the woman standing before him belonged to a world he could never enter. Iris. He choked out, his voice barely louder than a dying breath. Goodbye, Ethan, I said. He lowered his head. With slow, broken steps, like a man marching to his own execution, Ethan walked out through the glass door into the bustling square. He didn't look back. He couldn't. I watched his solitary, hunched figure disappear into the crowd by the marina, swallowed by the bright, uncaring afternoon sun. I closed the door. The soft chime of the bell rang with a clear, final note. Iris. Chloe walked out from the back room, looking at me with concern. Are you okay? I took a deep, long breath of the eucalyptus-scented air. My chest felt light, unburdened, and boundless. I smiled, picked up my pruning shears, and walked back to the workbench. I'm wonderful, Chloe, I said, clipping a stray branch from the juniper bonsai. Let's get ready for dinner.